Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. Wow, what, what news has leaked, according to Politico, the website, that the Supreme Court of the United States, plans to overturn the 1973 historic decision of Roe versus Wade. Now, what Roe versus Wade, for many people that don't know, is the legal decision for a woman to legally, across the United States, on a federal level, to obtain an abortion, to terminate her pregnancy. And this was considered, along with the legalization of birth control in the 1960s, was considered the greatest victory of the feminist movement, especially the second wave feminist movement. And you know, it was a landmark achievement for them at the time. Now the tide has turned. Culturally, people are, more anti anti-abortion. They're more in favor of, the pro-life position, or the so-called pro-life position, as they frame it. It's framed as an abortion versus pro-life debate, but it really that is not the correct framing of the argument, because what we're essentially talking about is ownership of one's person, ownership of one's self. Okay, the argument by pro lifers, especially pro life conservatives, has always been, well, it's not a woman's right to choose because it is another life within her, and she is essentially taking the life of the unborn fetus. But that scientifically is not true. Scientifically, a fetus cannot survive without the host of, you know, the mother's host body, essentially. So it is essentially the fetus before it is born and before it reaches a certain trimester. Scientifically, basically is a parasite. It is living off living off the life force of the host, which is the mother. And that is essentially what it is. Now there is religious things, religious connotations that go into it, because people say that, religious people, especially in the Abrahamic traditions, three Abrahamic traditions, especially Christianity, in which we live under, we live in a Christian society. They say, well, life begins at birth. But again, that is science, denial of science. You know what I mean? It is not true that life begins at birth, unless you can scientifically or materialistically prove that there is a soul, but you cannot. You know what I mean? It's up to religious discretion. Whether or not you believe in that or you don't. You know what I mean? That's not something that a government can legally determine. Oh, life begins at this certain time, or life begins at that certain time. That is government overreach. That is a breach of governmental power on the citizenry, especially the woman, the female. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really get it. I mean, I get it why the government would want to control women's bodies, because the conservatives, they essentially want women, back to being baby making machines, back to being baby making producers, like it was in the 1950s, because, like we often talked about on this channel, there is demographic shift. There is a low percentage of certain demographics, particularly European Americans, being born within the United States, and that will essentially shift the demographics of this country, and they don't really want that. They want an increase in birth rates of European Americans. So I think that is the real political reason. That is the actual reason why they want to get this done. They couch it in religious terms, religious moralism. They tug at the heartstrings. Essentially, they when it comes to this issue, the anti-abortion issue versus um, the pro-abortion issue, essentially conservatives do the exact same things that they accuse often liberals of doing. They tug at the heartstrings. They tug at the emotions. They're like, oh, look at these unborn fetuses. It's a lot of propaganda on their part to try and coax the public into supporting this position. But they're okay. It's not a life actually. It's not a life. It's actually not not. The question I would pose to you, Paul, is can the fetus live outside of the mother? If it cannot, then it is not a life. You know what I mean? that that is a scientific fact. Well, well, says the says who? Okay, it essentially it's a parasite, and it comes down to okay, okay, zero science, zero knowledge. Okay, but from an from an okay, it's not only it's not only Republicans, it's some Democrats as well. No, it's not only Republicans. Where was I educated? Where did I study science? Well, common sense. Life begins when you breathe your first breath of air. So if you don't breathe your first breath of air, then you are not alive. Where was I educated? Okay, does it really matter where I was educated? Okay, it's all opinion based, but tell me, then I'll pose the question back to you. Tell me, other than a religious opinion, other than the three Abrahamic religions that I'm sure you subscribe to, what what other basis do you have that it doesn't? What other basis? What other scientific? op- Right, exactly what Chris Martinez said. It's not for me an issue of whether I believe. Okay, I'm not even coherent. Okay, fine. I'm not even coherent. Okay. It's not even for me an opinion of whether or not life begins at birth or whatever. To me, it's a government issue. Leaving it up to the states, I think, is a smart decision, and that's essentially what they're going to do. I think. You know what I mean? Because it's a state. It is science to me. But then again, all science is evolving. Science is not static. Science does not stay in one place at one time, always. Science, what we know about science and what we don't know about science, is constantly evolving. Is it not? We could know something today and not know it tomorrow, essentially. You know, there was a time in history when we believed that the Earth was the center of the universe, you know, a geocentric worldview. There was a time in history when we believed that the world was 6,000 years old. There was a time in history when we believed the earth was flat, but we no longer believe those things to be true. So, what is science and what isn't science can evolve, can it not, Paul? Because what we thought of as conjecture or open to a matter of opinion was an opinion once, and today it is considered scientific. So, my point is that it is more organic than static, as you're saying. Okay, it was a bad law from the beginning. Okay, I heard that interview where she admitted that. I heard that. You know, but my point is, just get the government out of people's lives. If they have the opinion that they want to terminate, but they don't consider a life to begin with, then should they not? It's not an issue, okay, of or Roe v. Wade or not Roe v. Wade. That's just what the case is, right? But the point is, okay, now you're making a statement as if you considered, okay, what evidence, again, did you have that it is a life? You know what I mean? Like, what evidence do you have other than your religious convictions or your opinions of that? You know, you have opinion. You accuse me of only having my opinions and not basing it on science. And you say, "Well, where was I educated? Where do I base it on?" But I am turning it back on you. I'm saying, "Well, where are you basing it on? You know, what's your basis for it?" Okay, does it at the beginning of a pregnancy, at the zygote level? Does it have that at the zygote level? We're not talking about late term abortions like New York or other kind of ultra liberal states. We're talking at the minute of conception. Conservatives always say that the real pro life conservatives, a lot of the pro life conservatives, and we're not talking about Republicans or Democrats because those are political parties and they've switched opinions and positions on several issues over time. So some of the people that are pro life, some of the real pro life people, okay, 40 days, 40 days, okay. No, I don't agree with 40 days. Maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. Okay, but don't people feel okay? All right, they feel the baby feels pain, but again, you're pulling at emotional stuff. You're bringing emotion into it. That's what liberals do. Liberals pull the emotions in. No emotions. Take emotions out of it and just deal with concrete. No emotions. Take the emotional aspect out of it. Say they don't. Say the woman. Okay, yeah, concrete signs of life. There you go. Yeah, I asked for that, and you gave me concrete. I can't deny you gave me that, but still, I say the government should be kept out of the issue. It is not a government. It's not for the government to decide what another person does with their own body, or even 40 days is way too early. 40 days is way too early, and you're probably basing this on, I don't know, some religious belief. Right, exact. Yes, the government. Yeah. Okay, the baby is its own life. Paul, let's agree to disagree on this. We have different opinions, but you're entitled to your opinion as well as I'm entitled to mine. You say I'm incoherent. Okay, okay, fine, fine. Okay, you have science. Okay, I'm talking about from a governmental. Okay, from a governmental standpoint, I agree with you. Maybe. Okay, I don't know. It's a newsworthy story. I've let it go. I've let it go. I don't really care about it. you know, it's not something I'm uber passionate about. It's not even. Okay, yeah. get educated. Okay, well, you finally enlightened me, Paul. You finally. It just means that it's going to be up to the states to. Okay, it just means, Lisa, that it's going to be up to this discretion of the states. That's all. It's going to be a state issue at the local level rather than the federal level. Good night, Paul. I open a open forum to pretty much everybody. No, it's been a federal issue, Lisa. I opened the floodgates. Good night, Paul, to everyone. You know what I mean? They can agree or disagree. I don't care. I always say that. You can attack me personally. I don't really care. Our opinions are our opinions, and some of the things we choose to focus on and zero in on in terms of science or legalism is what we choose to focus on. And but I feel like it's up to the woman. Paul doesn't. He feels like he fights for fetus rights, and it's a complicated issue. It's a nuanced issue. It's not something black or white. Lisa is a woman stepping in, giving her opinion. I think a woman is more um, enlightened in terms of this, and more. This is a more of a woman's issue that has, you know, that concerns women more so than men. The practicalities of it, whether or not uh, you even believe that women, it's a life at birth, a life that begins at conception, 40 days, or late term abortions, or whatever you believe in. Ultimately, us as men disgusting it is futile because a man has never been pregnant and never will be pregnant because despite what some of the liberals might say, a man is still a man and a woman is still a woman. And us as men, we can have our opinions, but that's all it's ever going to be, opinion, because we are never going to experience pregnancy. And that is a fact. Nobody can debate that. What I mean? We are men, and men are men, and the men cannot get pregnant. You know what I mean? So ultimately, it's a woman's opinion matters more in this instance than a man's opinion on this. Now, what this essentially, and I'll offer the other counter argument that Paul was saying, but this essentially, the sinister side of this is eugenics. There are some people that use abortion as deeming some populations worthy of life and some other populations not worthy so much of life. For example, during Nazi Germany, the abortion was a tactic that would be used to eliminate people that were unworthy of life. You know what I mean? So that's a sinister side to it because listen, because we are people with disabilities, you know what I mean? Some people might deem us that we should have been aborted, right? You know what I mean? Some people might say, oh, well, we are the drudge to society or the unworthy to society, so maybe our mothers should have aborted us and we should have not had life. So I understand the side of it that where Paul is coming from. I think where he's coming from. I think not Paul himself because he signed out. He said goodbye, but people like him, are coming from it, attacking it from that angle. And that is completely understandable. But again, at the same time, this essentially should be a real debate with the opinions of women versus other women. You know what I mean? We could have an opinion. I have an opinion on the legal matters of what the government should be involved with in terms of personal autonomy. But at the same time, I don't think that I or any other man for that matter, really has the personal experience or will ever have the personal experience to really say whether a woman should have a baby or not. That essentially should be up to a woman whether or not they want that. But I see both sides of it. That was always the thing for me that I always saw as a sinister side to um, abortion was that how if left undiscriminate, it can really discriminate against people with disabilities, for example. Again, but the government stepping in either way to support it and to support like a genocide of people or what have you is equally as bad as not supporting it. So some telling women what they can do with their bodies like some handmaid tale shit. So either way, it could veer into weird, dark authoritarianism. Either way you look at it. Anyway, guys, that's my opinion. Good night. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you, Paul, for participating. Thank you, Lisa, for participating. Anyway, comment, like, subscribe, dislike, don't subscribe,